Where Sebastian was a serial cheater. For those of you out there playing the home game, that doesn't mean somebody who cheats using cereal like Cocoa Puffs, but a repeat offender. Humor and law, folks. The humor is free of charge. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the I Just Want This Done Divorce Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Raif and Rahul. The divorce lawyer is so good he has three names. And Rahul Iyer here, as always, coming at you from our live from our studios. And this is the first time we've live streamed, so we apologize in advance for any flubs in this. We normally get the show edited, but okay, we thought it'd be fun to live stream, so we hope you enjoy it. So drop your comments in, let us know if you like it, and we'll keep doing it if you enjoy this. So we've got a loaded up show as usual, and this one's really good. We've been out for a little bit, and we're back. This is very current stuff. So we're talking about Emily Ratajkowski. Rahul told me you don't pronounce the J. And we've got Tyrese Gibson. We've got a really crazy story, sad story about a crime story involving divorce. We'll talk about, Rahul will talk about that. We're going to talk about a Dave Ramsey divorcing story, not Dave Ramsey divorcing, but a person on his show talking about divorce and a hidden $1 million debt. We're going to talk about a couple real divorce topics, including this sort of hidden debt issue, also leverage and prenups. Like, how do you get somebody to sign a prenup? What happens if you don't have leverage, or what are your options? The next one is cost of trial. How much is a divorce trial? How do we estimate the cost for that? Rahul's going to talk about, and we're going to talk about our opinion of destination weddings and Larry David's comments about destination weddings. And then the T app, TEA dating app, and that's current drama surrounding that app that's come out recently for women. And then also you call it a new dating trend. We kind of laugh about how what's old is new again in dating. And this is an interesting one we want to talk about at the end. So stick around. You're going to enjoy this one. We got a great episode coming for you.
We want prenup. We want prenup.
And as always, we want prenup. So without further ado, let's get started. We're going to talk first about the Emily Ratajkowski and Sebastian Bear McClard. The man's so important. He's got three names, but Bear McClard is more impressive than Raif Dalton Palmer. Okay, so the story here is they just finalized their divorce after 3 years. Daily Mail can exclusively reveal. So we'll have links to all this stuff in the show notes. According to court records, judgment filed in Manhattan Supreme Court July 22nd. Remember, for those of you in law school, Manhattan's Supreme Court is ironically their trial court. So in New York, for some reason, their Supreme Court is not the Supreme Court. It is their trial court. I don't know why it's backwards. That's the way it is. July 22nd. So those of you out there looking to date Emily, she is now a free woman as of July 22nd. So, you can slide into her DMs and see how you do. She's 34, Sebastian 44. For anybody interested in Sebastian Bear McClard, he is now a free man. A medical child support order also filed. Divorce records private in New York, so no further details are given. They are not private in Illinois. They are public. So we try to help with privacy as much as we can by keeping certain things out of public record, but you can't keep everything out of public record. So apparently the divorce appeared to be nearly over in December when Emily's attorney submitted, as the story says, and I quote, a bunch of documents. Okay.
Very legal term.
Yes. Including a proposed qualified medical child support order, certificate of dissolution, and proposed judgment. So apparently it looks like they filed the final paperwork that's similar to what we do in Illinois, but it looks like the case was settled in December due to a document on settlement being filed, but details were withheld. So who knows why there's the delay, but they're divorced, and apparently a long extended negotiation period if it took 3 years. Apparently they split after the film producer was accused of infidelity. So the accusations were that Sebastian was a serial cheater. For those of you out there playing the home game, that doesn't mean somebody who cheats using cereal like Cocoa Puffs, but a repeat offender. Humor and law, folks. The humor is free of charge. Okay.
So there's a lot.
At least in this show, it is. Yeah. Not legal advice. Consult an attorney for details.
Yes.
Okay. So there are many pictures in this story, more of Emily with very skimpy dresses on and whatnot. She looks a lot better than Sebastian Bear. I'm just saying. But there you have it. Okay. So next we're going to talk about Tyreek. Tell us what's going on with, not Tyreek. We're talking about Tyrese Gibson. I mix up Tyreek Hill and Tyrese Gibson. Sorry, Rahul.
Yes. So Tyreek Hill, that's another story we'll probably talk about next week. So Tyrese Gibson of the Fast and Furious fame, the franchise with now, I think, Vin Diesel, The Rock, Paul Walker, all those people, and Tyrese. So anyway, latest news about this drama is historically him and his wife, Samantha Gibson, were divorced in 2023. And I guess he was ordered as part of the divorce to pay $399,512 to Samantha's attorneys who represented her in the divorce.
So wait a second, Rahul. That was back then?
That was back in 2023.
Okay.
And then maybe if there's anything subsequent to that. So he had not paid that. And so given the interest charges and everything, that figure has now ballooned to $492,651. So he owes her nearly $500,000 according to this article that from Billboard.com. So punishment for non-payment. So typically when you don't follow a court order, it's called you're in contempt of court unless there's a bona fide reason that you haven't followed it. But otherwise, you're going to be held in contempt of court and sent to jail according to, I guess, in their jurisdiction for 20 days. So he had previously been taken into custody for contempt for failing to pay child support and then was released a few hours later. And there's a lien on his Atlanta mansion for the legal debt as well. And now Samantha has filed a new contempt action, hoping that he would finally pay. They say he's got plenty of money, he should pay up. And we always tell people, folks, follow court orders. Don't get into self-help or non-payment issues. It just never ends well.
Right. Yeah, bad news. If you let this stuff pile up, you're never going to get away from a court order. The judge will hold you in contempt and make you pay. So
yeah, if you can't do it, file something in court asking for relief.
Yeah,
saying absolutely. I need more time or what have you. So
then next, turning our attention to a sad story that Rahul came across, actually local to us. There have been a couple of kind of high-profile crimes related to divorce in the news, and one we may talk about next show. But tell us what this story is. Really shocking story.
Yeah, it's a tragic and shocking and completely just awful. Which is essentially here, local to us, like you said, a suburb of Chicago, a northwestern suburb of Chicago called Schaumburg. An Illinois dad has been accused, according to this article from The Independent, has been accused of killing his daughter-in-law, quote-unquote, execution style, at a family wedding after he found out she planned to divorce his son. So the dad's son, who was married to this lady, dad's name being Ronald Schmidt, 76, and the deceased, unfortunately, the victim, Christine Moyer, was 45. She was shot at a parking lot outside a Marriott hotel in Schaumburg, and unfortunately died at the hospital later. I guess they were attending a wedding on Friday night, not this Friday night, but a few days ago, or maybe a week ago or so, depending on when the show airs. But they were attending a hotel, and then she was talking to another family member, and what happened was, right before the wedding, he had heard or learned from his son that she planned to divorce his son. So then he shot her.
According to the story, it was weeks before that he'd learned about that his son told him that they were getting divorced.
Yeah, he had learned. It's not like she told him then and he brought a gun. I think it was sort of planned that he was going to he's going to interact with her in this setting, and I guess he did it.
Just awful.
Very awful. The public defender, I guess, as a criminal aspect, argued his age and medical issues should allow him to be released from jail. Judge ruled he is to remain in jail until his next hearing, which is on August 22nd. Just very, very sad all around, tragic.
Occasionally passions run very high, and then people are deranged and do crazy things. So it's just important for people involved in divorce to keep their wits about them. And, I don't think anybody expects something like this, but if you think you're in danger, use your head and stay out of situations where somebody might try to harm you, because you just don't know when people get involved in these things. They can lose their minds and anything can happen. So the police, or we've talked about this before, an order of protection is just a piece of paper. And if somebody really wanted to hurt you, the order of protection isn't going to stop them. So you have to, your number one piece of protection is what's between your two ears, using your head and avoiding situations. I'm not blaming the victim at all. I don't think she had any clue this person was going to do anything like this, or she wouldn't have shown up for sure. But just, we are involved in cases occasionally, pretty rarely, where there's some physical violence, and it starts with the people involved in trying to avoid it and defuse it. So be careful out there, folks. Those orders of protection are useful in certain situations, but they're not bulletproof shields. And the police always come 5 minutes later. So,
and it gives you a false sense of security when you might not do anything. Like you said, it's very reactive. It's not really proactive. And also, so sort of the corollary to that is also, if you think someone's volatile, don't give them news that could set them off. I don't know if this dad had mental health issues. I'm sure he had some issues given that he did this, but I don't know if the son, obviously the son you would anticipate wouldn't have said anything if he expected any type of reaction like this. But, it's one of those where just tragic, but, like you said, just keep your head on a swivel.
That's right. So absolutely. So moving on to we're going to move into our sort of solid divorce topics. And this one, it came up with related to the Dave Ramsey show. And the headline of the story is Dallas woman divorcing her husband after over secret million. It's sort of a weird headline. Divorcing husband regarding a $1 million secret debt, but the hosts of the show tell her to own her part of the debt. So here's the story. It talks about financial infidelity. So you've heard of infidelity and cheating on a spouse, but there's a concept that spending secretly is financial infidelity and is almost as bad. So this person, Kathy from Dallas, called into the Ramsey show seeking urgent advice. She revealed to the co-hosts she suspected her to-be ex-husband has racked up close to $1 million in debt behind her back. She's worried she's on the hook for half of it. Spoiler alert, generally, yeah, you are. There is a thing called dissipation of assets, which we've talked about before, which is waste of marital assets. But typically the debts of parties that are racked up, even if it's individual debt, is marital. Even if one person racks it up with the other person not knowing, it's still considered marital debt that's split between the parties. And you might get a court to agree to allocate it to the other person, but that's very rare. So she asked the host this, and she filed for divorce in April, learning about the financial infidelity. It's a 27-year marriage, and she's trying to minimize her damage. But the interesting thing is the co-host said that obviously they talk about money can be a huge driver of, marital strife. And the co-host said, well, what part of it, you're involved in this because you sort of either you looked the other way and allowed it to happen, or you paid no attention to the finances such that this was able to happen. $1 million in debt is not a small amount, even for wealthy people. And to just ignore it and not pay attention seems, first of all, hard to believe. And secondly, like intentionally avoiding the issue. So, and we've seen this in cases where the person who feels wronged says to us, they wasted all this money. And you ask, well, how long did that go on? Oh, for 10 years, 15 years, some long period of time where people just let this stuff happen. And then they say, well, I shouldn't be responsible for it. I didn't agree to it. Well, just because you didn't agree to it 5-10 years ago doesn't mean you're not on the hook for it. And your option is maybe it's not an appealing option, but your option is to get divorced. Or I mean, either A, tell them to stop, or B, get divorced back then. So courts don't really have sympathy for people that sort of are willfully either know about the spending and don't do anything, or B, are willfully ignorant of it. And maybe they're part of it. Maybe they're spending a lot too, and they just don't like the other person's spending. So these are real issues we run into. There's an interesting couple of stats here. It says a 2021 survey by National Endowment for Financial Education found 43% of people with combined finances in a relationship have committed an act of financial infidelity. Now, of course, we don't know how much money we're talking about. For 40%, that meant hiding a purchase or bank statement from their partner. That's probably very common. For 19%, it means hiding cash. For 16%, financial infidelity led to divorce. She said she let her husband handle family finances for many years while she became a stay-at-home mom, and then learned he kept financial secrets. So we've seen this many times, and it's a pattern that repeats. All I can say, and this is something also that came up on Twitter recently, or X, I was reading some posts by an estate planning lawyer who said, you have a duty to educate yourself about your family's finances and not just be ignorant. So word to the wise, tune in on your family finances, and you just can't play dumb because it's not an excuse.
Exactly. And there's, the caveat being, of course, if there's secret expenditures, or if someone takes out a credit card you have no idea about and then racks up all this credit card debt, then you may have some recourse. But even then, you should know that there's something off. There's something off about it. You might not know that this is happening or to the extent it's happening, but there are always going to be red flags because that kind of money is not spent without any sort of signs of something going on.
That's right.
Maybe pull a credit report, ask them to say, hey, I'd like to see a credit report or what have you. So
yeah, you can pull your own credit and see what's showing up on joint credit cards.
Right. Exactly. If you can't access anything else. So very good tips there. And yeah, you're complicit in some way, shape, or form, unfortunately. And depending on the expenses, I mean, in our jurisdiction, Illinois, you have some recourse, called dissipation. I mean, it's not going to give the money back, but he might be responsible for paying a larger portion of it or what have you. So there's ways to maybe claw back, but you can't sort of unring that bell anyway. Someone's got to pay it back.
And you were just in a trial involving dissipation that took several days.
Right.
You can talk about how much time it takes to prove it and how judges are skeptical about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Every single expense, and now if it's $1 million, you can expense it's not. He didn't go out and buy one thing for $500,000 and two things for $250,000 each. I mean, $400,000.
He bought the Bugatti.
Yeah, exactly. Put it on my credit card, right? So it's sort of like you have to go line item by line item and then determine. You'll have to establish it was spent for a non-marital purpose, or why you believe it was spent for a non-marital purpose, or at least allege it was not spent for a marital purpose. I don't know what he did with all these different entries. Now, if you have thousands of small $500 here, $1,000 there, I mean, it takes a lot of that to make up $1 million. So it's not like it's going to be an easy endeavor. And so it's a very time-intensive proposition, cost-intensive proposition. You'll spend tens of thousands of dollars just trying to do that. And so
absolutely right.
Yeah, we just finished a trial on that, and it's not ideal.
Right. Absolutely. So they're just good. I just thought there were good tips in there for the audience to be aware of. And always a good reminder to know you're on the hook for things like debt and taxes, income taxes, even if you're not the one earning the money or you're not the one shorting the tax. If you're not paying enough to the IRS and a tax debt piles up, that's a marital debt too. In most cases. Okay, moving on. We've got this I want to talk about a couple other legal issues. One is prenups. So we've described what they do, what they don't do before, but I had an interesting call with a potential client a few days ago discussing prenups, and the person said that they'd been dating a long time and that they were getting married, planned to get married in the fall, wanted to get a prenup, and the person was discussing sort of the outlines of the prenup and what they'd been talking about with their future spouse. Well, they're both older, so they're both, let's just say, 50s, and both previously married. And so they each have their own finances. So the person talking to me had their own business, has their own income. The other person makes substantially more income and has a business, but the person talking to me makes a nice income and has some assets. So my question was, and the dating was several years, and the person was talking about the restrictions on the prenup, or in the prenup, that the other spouse or future spouse wanted. And they were fairly tight, like putting a lot of clamps down on things like support, alimony, maintenance, and things of that nature. And the person said to me, I don't want that. Can I get more, et cetera? I want protections. And the person said to me, I basically said, so what's the motivation behind getting married? And that's not to offend anybody, but when you've been dating for several years, I want to know from a lawyer's standpoint, what leverage does this person have? Does my client ever, do I have as a lawyer? And in a prenup, your only leverage is getting married or not getting married. Like when you're negotiating for a prenup, the option for the other person is to just say no. And you're left with two things: getting married without a prenup or not getting married. So I want to know.
Or caving to the demand.
Yeah, or agreeing to the demand. Yeah, exactly. So it's very simple in some ways. The negotiating leverage is very, very interesting at this point in life. And what I said to the person was, the person listed several reasons why they wanted to get married. And, it's because X, Y, Z and security and all these things, and they're valid reasons. I said, okay, well, no, what I want to know is, why do they want to get married? And so, because I want to know, when you push the buttons and you say, I want this, this, and this, are they just going to say, hey, take a hike? I'm fine with dating you. They might.
Right.
And so I was just trying to caution this potential client about what's realistic to expect. And this person really couldn't list any good reasons why this person was going to marry her. And it was a struggle for them to talk about that. And so I think that's something that people really need to consider. What is the other person's motivation to marry you, especially when you've been dating a long time? Now, I said, you might have to be serious about breaking up with them and not seeing them again if they won't marry you. Otherwise, there is absolutely no incentive. So it's really tricky. And people have to understand that dynamic in a prenup, that you better hope the person wants to marry you as much as you want to marry them, because that's your leverage. I mean, here's the good news. If you press for what you want, and you shouldn't back off from the things you want, I'm not saying do that, but if they don't agree, then that tells you everything you need to know. Assuming you're realistic about your expectations and you're asking for reasonable stuff, then that tells you have a serious values difference and a problem, and you probably shouldn't get married. So you'll find out by asking the questions. You may not want to know in some ways, but you're better off knowing. So what experiences do you have with that, Rahul? Do you have things to add on that? Because it's so interesting to me, because I don't know that I'd thought about that or had that conversation with somebody. It was always just assumed both people were going to get married when I've done prenups before. And this occurred to me, this guy was playing so much hardball that I thought, maybe he just doesn't care.
Right. No, and obviously the reason we ask these questions, before I answer your question, the reason we ask these questions is not to try to talk someone out of getting married. No, that's
right.
No, that's not the case at all. It's to make sure the ideas are fully formed, they're fully articulated, because otherwise they're just things that are floating on in your head. You're negotiating for the sake of negotiating. You're playing hardball for the sake of playing hardball. So you want to know what is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement, right? What happens? What's the best alternative there? I mean, walking away is the only alternative, really. Either you cave
Right.
or you walk away or you agree. Those are the three options in prenup negotiations. Now, it's like a lot of people want to play hardball. Attorneys will negotiate, they'll push back and forth, they'll do this, they'll do that. Then they each kind of massage certain things to their clients to kind of try and compromise a little bit here and there to try to get a deal done. Sure, but bottom line, big picture, you have to know, you're like, this is worth it for me. These compromises are worth it for me, because
Right.
you don't want to have buyer's remorse and you're going into something you're very happy about. You'd like to throw this prenup in a drawer and never look at it again, ideally.
Right.
But you want to make sure that, there is good reason why you're, dating for 10 years, everything is great, and all of a sudden you want to get married. And oftentimes it's sort of like you're best friends with someone in high school. You go to college, you live with them, and then you hate each other after the first year, right? That's what happens. It's kind of the same thing. So
hopefully not, but yeah.
right. So, sometimes I caution people, which is just, be careful, you know what you wish for, you might get it. So anyway, what do I do with these kind of things? Well, I just kind of have a conversation sort of like you with them about why they're getting married, what's changed, what they're looking for, and more importantly, are they aligned with the other side, with their soon-to-be spouse, their fiance? Are they aligned on large, big picture items? If you're aligned on big picture, we can work out the details, nuances here and there, no problem. But if you don't have that alignment, then you have, we can't help you.
Right. It's all important value coordination.
Yeah, the value proposition has to be, you guys have to be on the proverbial same page before any attorneys can do it. You can't say, here, sign this or we're not getting married. I mean, yeah, you can say that. And if the other side is desperate enough to want to go along for that ride, they can. But they can just say no, and you better be okay with the no. All right,
That's
well,
right.
I guess no problem. Let's forget this ever happened. Let's keep dating. I don't think it works that way either.
No, it's just, but we wanted to talk about it because it's very real. And, I wanted to talk to this potential client about it because, like you said, we're going to run into it, or the potential client is going to run into that issue eventually. So at whatever point we get in the negotiations, whenever push comes to shove, the shove might happen and my potential client may not like it. And I just wanted them to be prepared for that possibility that the person says just no, and think it through fully in their shoes. It's easy to understand what you want, but what do they want?
Right.
And thoroughly thinking that through is going to help you get it done much more efficiently, or you'll have some valuable revelations about where you stand in the relationship and what your values are and all that stuff. But thinking it through ahead of time is going to make the whole thing a lot easier. So that was it. But yeah, thanks for talking through that with me. I appreciate it in the audience, because I think we have these things happen in consultations, and too often they get buried, or we don't have time to put a web page up or do a blog post on this. And I don't always get a chance to post something on X about it. By the way, I'm on x.com at Rayford Palmer. And there's really good nuggets in there. So that's why I want to talk about it. And along those lines, next topic is costs of trial and how we think about it at STG Divorce Law in Chicago, our firm. And I think I got the name of the firm back there on the bookcase. But so this topic has come up from time to time, and we talk to our lawyers on our team about this. And one of the important things is to let our clients know what to expect when we're getting involved in a divorce case. And people need to know how much trials actually cost. And very few cases go to trial. In our law firm, I bet we go to trial 1 or 2% of the time. And the national average is supposed to be 95%. Now, I think good lawyers try cases. I think great lawyers settle cases, because most cases in divorce should be settled. And anybody can throw stuff against the wall to see what sticks and blame the judge later for the outcome. I'm exaggerating. A good trial lawyer would do their best job to present the evidence and the law and make arguments to shape it as best they can. But also there's a certain element of throwing your hands up and just trying the case because you couldn't come up with a solution. And so I always decry what I call lazy lawyering, when it's in some ways easier to just try the case and see what happens than to go through the arm twisting and bending and effort required to negotiate a settlement. So anyway, wanted to talk about how expensive trials are, because that helps you do a cost benefit analysis for divorce lawyers, for their clients, to understand, okay, the cost of the trial is this, my potential outcomes are this, and I want to know what all that is so I can evaluate whether the settlement in front of me is a good deal. So I talk all about the cost benefit analysis in my best-selling divorce book, I Just Want This Done. This podcast is named after the book, and available on Amazon, by the way. And chapter 3 or 4 talks about the nuts and bolts of calculating and thinking about a cost benefit analysis, and knowing how much trial cost is crucial. So over the years, I've come up with a rule of thumb about calculating the cost of trial prep and trial, not just the trial. And we'll explain the components of it. So the formula is hourly rate. So figure an average hourly rate times 10 hours per day times the number of trial days you expect times 3. And I'll break this down. So first, your hourly rate. So you take an average rate for our firm. I ballpark $500 an hour. This is, by the way, the number we use to ask clients for a retainer for trial, which is like a deposit, and we bill from that. And when I've seen this math done, it generally works out fairly close to what it ends up costing. And we ask for this typically 3+ months before trial. Once a trial date is set, typically in our area, it's about 3 to 6 months to trial. So we talk to the client about this and say, look, here's what you can expect based on the complexity of the case, the issues. We kind of figure the trial days are sort of an analog for that. So we think the trial is going to take 3 days, 6 days, 10 days, whatever. And it's important to know a trial day, as Rahul just experienced recently, isn't really a day. It's like a few hours in the afternoon because of the way the judges work around this area. But it's a good analog for what the lawyer actually does, because even though you're only standing up and performing for 2 or 3 hours, all the prep time in the communications, talking to the client, the judge, the other lawyer, pre-trial conference before the trial that day, getting all your stuff unpacked and setting up, and all the prep required to get up to speed for the given day, travel time and coordinating witnesses and your paralegal working, it ends up, you might as well just call it a full day. So I figure 10-hour days for those trial days. A typical basic trial is probably 2 or 3 days. So we figure $500 an hour for our firm, but fill in your number because your mileage may vary in your area, may be cheaper in general. And we're sort of fudging a number between what our paralegals charge and what our senior partners charge. So we're picking sort of a median or an average number. And again, this is not what it costs, ballpark it is, but this is what we ask the client to advance to us over the course of multiple months, broken into payments.
And it's what they should expect to be, potentially out of pocket on. That's sort of what your expectation should be, that this is how much it's going to cost.
Yeah. So we say, okay, in our case, $500 an hour times 10 hours a day times, let's say, trial days. So in this example, 3 days. Then you say, well, okay, that's the trial cost. What's the times 3? That's the prep. That's the run up to trial. So like I said, there's about 3 to 6 months going up to trial. And what happens during that time? Tons of discovery, getting all the documents together and reviewing everything, understanding, because now you're prepping for trial. So you're digging back into the past and reviewing everything carefully, going through fine-tooth comb, producing copies of your client's stuff to the other side and organizing all that stuff. This takes a lot of lawyer and paralegal time. Preparing strategy, understanding witnesses, possible depositions, sending out subpoenas for additional records, getting all the documents and drafting an early prep ready for the trial, for the opening statement, closing argument, witness lists, exhibit list, indexes of discovery documents. The list goes on and on and on. Not to mention, the judges want these trial binders, sometimes electronic, sometimes physical, which takes hours and hours and days for paralegals and lawyers to assemble. So in some cases, we're talking about thousands of pages of documents. So when you figure that 3 times trial is has up to us turned out to be a pretty good rule of thumb to know how much is it going to cost from setting the trial to finishing the trial, being done with it at the end of that last day. So people say, oh, it's a lot of money. Yeah, it's a lot of money. Sometimes it's a ton of money, but we're talking about cases involving hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, children's custody, which is a big deal to people, and their life, their money, their property. So it's a real big deal, and it's a big investment, but there's no alternative other than settling the case. So we'd rather be realistic with people than pump sunshine into people and give them false ideas. And then later they get a bill and say, what the heck is this? So this gives you a good rule of thumb about this. And it works. In my opinion, it should work across the country. Just adjust that hourly number for your area. Find out what the ballpark average is for your lawyer and, between them and their paralegal, for example, and use that number as, I would skew it towards the lawyer's fee number rather than just the paralegal number, and then use that to give you some idea. And then we break that into payments in those months leading up, so it's more digestible, but it's still a lot of money. So this is why settlement makes sense in a lot of cases. So I wanted to just walk through that. Rahul, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's an exact, I think that's a great rule of thumb. I think that's sort of how it eventually ends up working out. I mean, if you sort of add up from the day the trial was set to now, you can think initially you have sticker shock. Oh my God, but that's I don't have that much to fight about. We're not really arguing about that. Well, it doesn't really work like that, because the process doesn't change if you're arguing about one thing or 10 things. The process is the same, and the way it leads up, the stuff you need to do, everything you talked about, all that is still the same. So it's really a very expensive proposition if you're only fighting about one thing. Maybe you shouldn't fight about that one thing. Maybe you have to think about, is that one thing worth that much money to me or not? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. That's for you to decide. But people will often say to us, well, can I pay you not, I don't want to pay you $30,000 in a retainer. Can I give you $10K and see where it goes? It's like, no, because we still have to do. We can't just work for that amount and say, okay, well, I guess we're not doing the job. I mean, we still have to show up to court prepared, ready to go. Right. We can't really say, well, we're just going to show up and see what happened. That's not the quality we do, at least at our firm. Some people, again, your mileage might vary, but yeah.
And we have an ethical duty.
Right.
It's literally written into our code of professional conduct that we must zealously represent our clients, keep them properly informed about their case. And we have to be aware of the law and the facts of the case, which means our law license is on the line with this. And also we can get sued for malpractice. So we have to maintain a certain level of quality for every case. There really is no stripped down version.
Right.
There are things we can economize on. Mm-hmm. So we could say, well, sure, we don't need to take a deposition of a certain person, or there may be issues that the client can set aside. Like we say, okay, there's a dissipation claim here that's $50,000, which means if you win, you'll get at most $25,000. Well, we'll tell them it's probably going to cost you $15,000 to $25,000 to try that issue, like just in the work needed to do that issue alone. And say the client may then say, oh yeah, I guess I don't want to do that because the cost benefit analysis doesn't work. So Rahul's right. There's a certain level of baseline work that's required. There is no cheapo version where we just kind of do half of it and say, oh, it's half price, and then show up and just take our chances. It doesn't work like that. The one thing we have done for people is if they want to try the case themselves, we will give them some guidance and training about how to go about doing that. But they're obviously, DIY divorce has risks, especially in a more complex case. We don't recommend it. It can be done. So hope that helps. Wanted to give you some insight into that. Let's move on to we always like to talk about more fun topics. And we talked before about our thoughts on destination weddings, and Rahul found this awesome Larry David thing. So we will link it in the show notes, and you got to watch it. It's a YouTube video, but tell us what did he say about it? and then we got to talk about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Larry David, obviously of Seinfeld fame, he was one of the writers, producers of Seinfeld, and then obviously Curb Your Enthusiasm, which stars him as the lead character there. So we always in this show, if you've been watching us or if you go back and watch, we always sort of quip about how destination weddings, and we have a little, we joke about destination weddings, but Larry David also feels the same way in some capacity. He famously won't go, when asked about destination weddings, he said he won't go to any wedding where you have to get on a plane. He said, it's my presence is my present, and it's just too far. He's like, that's not how I want to spend my time. I'm not getting on a plane to go somewhere for your wedding. And you have to watch the video. His delivery is great. He is very, very just sort of articulate about why, but really, point being, is Larry David. Yeah, exactly. Point being, he says it with his regular shtick there, but it's funny because it's one of those propositions where it's very presumptuous, and it's a very big expectation that everyone's going to fly to some destination to watch these two people get married. And in our previous shows, we talk about what we think about destination weddings. So it's a fun clip to watch.
It's great. You got to watch it. It's like it's their way. We don't think we can run it here. We might be able to if our editor can splice it in. That would be great. So we might be able to do for fair use and put his one quote in. But we always talk about like it's presumptuous to think like, okay, you're on vacation. It's the beginning of your honeymoon,
right?
But maybe we want to have our vacation somewhere else or do something else with some other people. No offense, and not spend a ton of money going to your wedding. Mm-hmm. Congratulations, but it's kind of rough to ask people to go to even Cancun for your wedding. So think before you do the destination wedding. And maybe it's cool to do it with a small group of people that are into it. But anyway, I just think it's great. So, okay, next, I want to talk about dating app stuff because we always love dating drama. This is big and very current. So you may have heard of the Tea app, TEA, dating app like spilling tea. It's all over the news, all over X right now in the internets, and it's called Tea Dating Advice, and it blew up when it was dropped on the App Store. And the whole scoop was a play on the "Are we dating the same guy" groups on Facebook. And I think some of them were getting shut down or something. I think I remember seeing that. If you don't know, the "Are we dating the same guy" groups were groups online for women to join and post pictures of the guy they were dating to say, "Are we dating the same guy?" Ostensibly, is a guy 2-timing or 5-timing or whatever. And they were also spilling the tea or the beans about if a guy was a jerk or whatever. They were posting information about these guys. And there were all kinds of questions about privacy and kind of ethics questions and things. And this person launched an app called Tea Dating Advice to capitalize on this, to allow women worried about their safety to share information about men they might date. And the premise was like polarizing. This New York Times story we cite here is by Isabel Kwai. It talks about it. This just came out. And it allowed women to talk about it. And some people said, hey, it's a useful way for women to be warned about dangerous men. Others said it was divisive and a violation of men's privacy. I mean, it sounds kind of sticky to me because you don't know who's giving the reviews and people can just make stuff up. There's really no limitation there. So there was all kinds of heat online about this app to begin with because there were women talking about how good it was. There were men saying it's terrible and men saying, what if we did a version for women where we're rating and reviewing women? And people were disgusted about that. So it's going around and round. And in the midst of this, just days after the app launched, released in 2023, says this article. I didn't know it was released that long ago because I just started seeing this blow up all over the internet. So I'm not sure how it was released in 23. Anyway, that's what the article in New York Times says. So apparently the app's founder is Sean Cook, and the thing took off, and it says, it says interest in the app this week escalated after it became the subject of videos and conversations about dating and gender dynamics on social media. There was a huge growth surge in the app. This is Thursday. So last week it was the top free app in the Apple download charts. So it blew up. And then Friday, there was a data breach of what they called a legacy storage system for its users. 72,000 images leaked, 13,000 selfies, images of identification documents. By the way, I remember reading this online. A screenshot from the app said that they deleted your ID documents right away after confirming your identity. So no, that stuff wasn't deleted, like your driver's license photos and stuff. So huge privacy breach for this app, and big time egg on the face of the T app folks. They said, T said the data belonged to users signed up before February 2024. But yeah, their privacy policy says selfies are deleted shortly after users are verified. Oops. So huge mess online about this, but interesting that it started this conversation about dating and information. And, you know, one thing we know for sure, the internet makes things forever. And, you know, ladies and gentlemen, be careful out there, because people can post stuff on you online all over the place. And it's just like anything with the internet, there are big pros and cons of anything. So people could share valid safety information about somebody and also improperly slander someone. So pretty crazy stuff. So next, dating news. This is a great one. Rahul's going to talk about what's this dating trend. I think it's great because it kind of goes to our point we've talked about in other shows about IRL dating, right? Talk about this.
Yeah, so dating's coming full circle. You know, it's called it's essentially pitching your friend. So according to this Glamour article, and this has happened it happened at a bar, you know, very close to where I live in Chicago. It starts off as, in 2025, we're turning back to one of the oldest forms of dating, meeting a romantic partner through friends. So it's like setting someone up is what they used to call it back in the day, right? You're setting someone up. So that's really what you're doing here. And so there's a few events in New York. It's called Pitch and Pair, and in Chicago they call it Pitch a Friend, or you know, you have various derivations thereof. But really, what the point is it's where you take PowerPoint and speed dating and you kind of combine it through like a proxy, essentially. So what's happening here is that, you know, your friend, whoever is pitching you, will create a PowerPoint 3 to 5 minutes long, you know, with photos, this, that, and the other. Basically, it's like a Hinge profile, or it's like things about you that's interesting or entertaining, and, you know, your likes, what you like to, you know, dislikes, etc. And they essentially pitch a group of people in a bar. So bars host these events where these people will come in, set up a projector, and essentially you will sit there. And from what I've heard, it gets pretty full. This article says, you know, they're usually filled up pretty fast. And then people sit and everybody gets chances pitching their friends. And then afterward, there's like this like mingling session where the people are there and they'll go and get numbers, talk to people, you know, and see where it goes from there. So, really good stuff. You know, IRL is a great way to do things. It's you're still not really doing it yourself. You're getting someone else to do it for you, but you're getting closer and closer to going back full circle, where you're just going up to someone at a bar and talking to them. So,
that's great.
And then the article also talks about another a group, or a type of a group, which is called, you know, for example, one that they reference here, it's called Thursday, which is another IRL singles movement who are also trying to change the dating scene by facilitating events in person. They basically set up things like wine tastings to activities that are more adventurous. So everybody is sort of welcome, and people go to things that interest them in hopes of finding someone who is, I guess, like-minded. So it's so the question becomes, according to this article, is friendship-led matchmaking a new dating trend, I guess? So,
well, yeah. And the interesting thing is that this is something we're seeing in marketing for business also, because I manage a law firm. And what's old is new again in a number of ways. When the internet is full of so much static, meeting people in person still works. And it cuts through all that noise online, whether it's a dating app noise where if you feel like you're not getting seen because you don't have the best pictures, or they say women swipe, you know, on guys only on 10% of guys on a dating app. And whereas in real life, they might want to date 50% of the guys they meet, or be at least interested in talking to them. And they said, men swipe right or approve half of the females they see, for example, on dating apps. But meeting in real life cuts through all that clutter and all the preliminaries, all the texting and wasted time. And it's super time efficient, because when you meet somebody in real life, all the texting and the pictures and all that go away, because you're seeing them as they are.
Right.
And not their filtered photos and, picture they took 4 years ago and just fancy texting they're using AI to help them with. So you're meeting the person as they are in real life. So just like in marketing now, they're talking about getting out and networking, going to real human events and meeting people. Like, shocker, this always worked when I was younger. It works for people, for human connections too. And so getting out there, if you're having some trouble dating, we'd advise you to go out and actually meet people. I know it's a shocker, but it still works. It's tried and tested. And you'll probably have better luck than you do online, because there's so much unrealistic sort of fake competition online, because somebody's looking at 20,000 profiles and it's a guy in California and it's a guy in, 4 hours away who's really never going to meet them. But they're seeing that, and they're chatting with people that probably are never going to meet them. And you're meeting people in your pond, like in your world. And just by geographically being co-located, you're cutting through a whole bunch of static and you might say competition.
Right.
So anyway.
And then also, yeah, and I was just going to add, and, kind of as a final point would be just sort of dovetailing from what you're saying there. It's also, you give to someone, if there's too much white noise, too many options, and they get decision fatigue, I think, in some capacity, because you're seeing 20, 30, 40 different people. It's like, if you want to figure out what you want to order in, let's say you're ordering a meal in, back in the day, you would open up the yellow pages, you'd flip to the thing you want, and you'd order it. Or you would, if you're not, I would drive down the street and I'll say, okay, that looks good, I'm going to go there. But if I'm sitting at my couch looking at my phone, I get this radius of every single restaurant in a 2-mile radius, and I'm going one to the other. Now it's an hour in and I still haven't picked something. And I'm like, well, nothing really sounds good. I don't know what I want. Nothing really sounds good, because there's too many options. You get 2 options. You pick this guy or that guy. You pick this restaurant or that restaurant. You're going to pick something. And you kind of see how it is. And then if you don't like it, don't pick it again. So
yeah, you're better off being, you're the person right in front of them at that moment. And that gives you a chance you're never going to get on a dating app.
Right.
So
right. Exactly.
Hope that works for folks out there. Let us know. But anyway, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Want to just touch base with you, tell you a little bit about how to find us. Our law firm is at stglawfirm.com online. And my book, I Just Want This Done, is ijustwantthisdone.com. Also easy to find on Amazon, or just Google I Just Want This Done. It's the best divorce book ever. 110 great reviews on Amazon, Kindle, Audible, where all great ebooks are sold, and consistently a bestseller in multiple categories, and has been for 4 years. And I'm at Raif Palmer on Instagram and on TikTok. Rahul, how can folks find you online?
You can find me, I don't have TikTok, but you can find me on Instagram at Chicago Divorce, and on LinkedIn as well, my name.
All right. Awesome. Thanks a lot, everybody, for listening and watching. We hope you take it easy out there, and check us out next week for the next episode. Thanks.
Thanks.